Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, would you back a sugar tax on fizzy drinks? Well, Jamie Oliver has been campaigning for one and is due to give evidence to MPs today, setting out why he thinks it will help to reduce childhood obesity. He thinks adding a tax of 7 pence to cans of soft drink with added sugar could generate an extra £1 billion a year. That money would go towards preventing childhood obesity in schools and the NHS. Almost 20% of 10 to 11-year-olds are estimated to be obese. Jamie Oliver has introduced a sugar tax of 10p in his own restaurant, and he says it has led to a 7% drop in the amount of fizzy drinks they're selling. He's launched a petition calling for the government to bring in a sugar tax, and it now has nearly 150,000 signatures.
It's not about just taking, it's about giving. So this for me is a moment in time where we've looked at public health. We can see the rise in type 2 diabetes, nearly 3 million people, and the cost of it nearly £9 billion. So I have singled out sugary sweetened drinks as a bit of a target. If you are frustrated about constantly reading bad news about public health, another auntie, uncle, friend that's in bad health or bad shape because of diet-related disease, if you're frustrated about not enough happening, then this is not just about a tax on a can of sugary sweetened drinks. This is symbolic. It's about enough is enough.
Well, how popular would a sugar tax be? We've got together a group of parents from right across the UK, and with me in the studio, Karina White and Simone Johnson, both mothers. Do you give your kids sugary drinks?
Not fizzy, but juice and squash. Fizzy on special occasions, if they're going to birthday parties and things like that, then it's very difficult to say no if others are having it.
So what do you think about what Jamie Oliver's saying?
I think it's the wrong battle.
Why?
I think it's a case of, I think he should fight for cheaper alternatives in the healthy section. How is it a processed sugary drink is cheaper to buy than, say, fresh juice, that's freshly squeezed, things like that.
What are your thoughts on it, Karina?
I don't give my daughter fizzy drinks, but she does have a lot of juice, but very watered down. She's into at the moment water with fresh fruit inside it, such strawberries, oranges, mint. She sees it as a fun alternative to having orange juice or blackcurrant juice. I agree with what she said in regards to healthy alternatives being more expensive. You can buy a bottle of fizzy drink for probably £1 less than you can get a healthy alternative. I think if they're introducing the sugar tax and they're going to use it to subsidise healthy foods, then I'm totally for that, definitely.
Philippa, joining us via Skype, what are your thoughts on this? Would you give your kids sugary drinks?
No, I definitely wouldn't. I think he's identified the key issue being sugar is really, really bad for you, for kids and for adults. But I think that the point is to actually empower women, rather than adding more pressure for the mums. I write a blog about mums. It's called Sugar Free Childhood, and we want to empower mums and give them the opportunity to learn about sugar and how bad it is. I think knowledge is the way forward, rather than putting more pressure on mums.
He says that his previous campaigns on school dinners and teaching people to cook good basic meals failed because being interested in food is seen as middle class, and that's why he's now chosen to take this tack. Do you think that's a fair comment?
No, I think it is difficult. It is a problem that some people do not want to get behind. And you can often feel really preachy, but it is so important. The benefits from not eating sugar, from cutting out sugar for the children, is mind blowing. So I just think it's so important. I don't think the tax is even going to damage the corporations who are pushing sugar. I don't think it's going to dent them at all.
So when you say the changes are mind-blowing, do you think if any amount of a sugary drink will have an impact on a child?
I just don't think they need to have sugary drinks, and I think by educating people into why and the effects of sugar in drinks, that's more important.
Melanie, what are your views? I can see you've got your chef's kit on there. You teach cooking and nutrition at school.
Yes. Well, I teach cooking and nutrition in schools out in Gloucestershire, and this is in line with the government initiative to bring that into the primary school curriculum. And I agree completely with your other contributor, the mom who's a blogger. Education is the key, and that's why I'm so passionate about making sure that children as young as reception year start beginning to understand how food works in our body, where our food comes from, and what makes up a healthy, balanced meal. So in terms of the sugar tax, I can see where Jamie Oliver is coming with this. If nothing else, it really highlights it and makes a person who's purchasing the drinks, makes them think twice about what it is that they're purchasing and why the tax is there. So although he may not fundamentally achieve everything in terms of bringing the tax into place, I think it really does highlight it. And to be fair, we're always talking about funding for education. Where will that money come from? I think if the tax does go ahead, possibly for a trial period, he is saying that that money is to be ring-fenced for education and for it to be going back into the NHS for obesity-related health issues.
Dan, there's actually a voluntary sugar tax system underway in Brighton where you are. Just tell us how that's working. Are many people actually imposing it?
Yes, I mean, some are opposing, but I do think the weakness of the voluntary tax that's been introduced in Brighton is that people just simply aren't going to go along with it. They don't see the problem of sugar as that urgent, particularly when I speak to businesses, restaurants and so on, and restaurant owners in Brighton. They don't see excess sugar consumption as a problem in relation to health, particularly in relation to children's health. And that's what I've found with the studies that I've conducted over the last 2 months. Across the board, it seems that there is no consensus that it's sugar that's causing obesity. And that's very much reflected in the opinions and views of the people I'm talking to in Brighton, where this, as we said, this voluntary tax has been introduced.
Maggie on text has got in touch to say, if I had my way, I'd put a 50% tax on everything containing sugar. An anonymous texter says there should not be a tax on fizzy drinks. I'm 38 and love my fizzy drinks. Why should I have to pay more tax? We already pay 20% on it. And an anonymous texter, is this country being run by a cook now? Maybe Jamie should remember his origins. It's up to the individual. If we want to buy sugary drinks, advise, don't preach. He has the wage not to have to worry about tax. Karina and Simone, one word that was used a little earlier in the discussion was preachy. Do you find any of this
Yeah, it
preachy?
is very preachy. Jamie Oliver's school dinners and healthy food failed was because lower income families, which it was directed at, they found that processed foods are a half to a third cheaper than buying fresh alternatives. And that's why that failed. I live on a council estate, and many of the families are lower income families. And to them, money is very important, budget is huge when they're buying food. For example, my food bill is £600 a month. I have a child with autism, and her behaviour when she's eating processed food to fresh is very, very different. You find the sugars, the fats, they contribute to behaviour quite a lot. But when, for example, if I make chicken nuggets, I buy the chicken breast, the eggs, the breadcrumbs. That's costing me £6-7, and you can go to a supermarket and buy a bag of chicken nuggets for £3. Lower income families are not going to make it from fresh.
So what's the answer? How does that
I think that you have to look at other ways. I mean, there's lots of food that are going to landfill because they're not suitable to be sold in supermarkets because they're the wrong shape or they're a bit odd. I think those should be available to lower income families at a discounted price, and they will be able to eat and drink a lot healthier. I don't think putting a sugar tax on is going to fix the problem.
Thank you all very much for joining us and joining in our discussion on this.